Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something big. A full deep dive camera comparison between 4 of the latest top of the range smartphones which have been released this year. So we've got the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, the OPPO X9 Pro, the OnePlus 15 and the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL. Each of these phones takes a very different approach to photography. So we've got big sensors, Hasselblad partnerships, 4 lenses, AI computational photography. So if you're trying to figure out which phone gives you the best photos, the best video, the best low light performance, or simply the most consistent camera experience for your money, this is the video you should watch. We're going through the main camera, ultra wide, zooms, portrait mode and macro, and finally video performance mainly in winter light conditions, because this is what I'm working with at this time of year in the UK. So let's get into the hardware first and break down exactly what each phone has and get into this video. Sit back, relax, and we'll get into this comparison. So let's start with the specs. Because this year every brand has doubled down on their unique approach essentially. So we've got Samsung S25 Ultra at first. So Samsung put in a 200 megapixel high resolution main sensor, which has been carried over from previous generations and is a decent performer. We've got a 10 megapixel telephoto lens, a 50 megapixel telephoto lens and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. So we've got 4 lenses on there. It's a 4 lens approach from Samsung, with obviously the front selfie camera at 12 megapixels too. We've got improved HDR processing and it's got a spec heavy camera system with zoom flexibility and also log filming this year. So it's a very much a pro focused phone. On the OPPO X9 Pro, we've got 2 large new sensors. So we've got a wide large sensor and a telephoto, which is the biggest sensors on all of these phones that I'm comparing. A 200 megapixel brand new telephoto. The ultra wide sensor is the smallest on the OPPO, so I'm expecting it to be the weakest camera on the OPPO. We've also got a brand new camera this year on the OPPO, a 2 megapixel true color camera to make colors seem more accurate and lifelike. So does this work? Let's find out. The OnePlus 15 has the 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel ultra wide and a 50 megapixel 3.5 times telephoto. All new lenses this year, but downgraded from last year's OnePlus 13, and we don't have the Hasselblad partnership. We've got the new Detail Max photo engine to improve accuracy. This year OnePlus is pushing for less processed and more accurate pictures, relying on software rather than hardware. So will this work? I don't know. Let's find out in this review compared to the manufacturers. Pixel 10 Pro XL has a 50 megapixel main and 2 48 megapixel cameras carried over from last year again. So the hardware exactly the same as last year, but with a new tensor improving photo processing and AI enhancements. So all these phones are taking a very different approach. We've got the Pixel and we've got the OnePlus going on software. We've got the Samsung with its 4 lens approach, also relying on software, but giving us 4 lenses flexibility on the zoom. Then we've got OPPO relying on big sensors and also this new true color camera to give more accurate pictures. Now we've gone through the hardware, let's find out how these phones perform in the different zoom ranges, in the different modes of the cameras, and especially in video performance. So first up, we've got the main wide cameras on all 4 phones. So let's start off with looking at the Samsung. So the Samsung's shot here, so we've got a landscape shot with some blue sky coming through and a bit of cloud, so the lighting condition is pretty good here. So you can see on the Samsung that it almost looks a little bit over processed, I think. It's a good picture, it's not a bad picture, but it just looks a little bit, it's very Samsung-esque picture, if that makes sense. So it's got quite a high contrast and it's a little bit washed as well, so it's kind of washed out the colour for me a little bit in this wide photo, and it's not my favourite photo of the bunch. And we'll next move on to the OPPO. So the OPPO here has taken what I think is quite a colour accurate picture. So if you look at the clouds in the sky, for example, we've got the greys and the whites and the blue coming through, whereas compared to the Samsung, it's a little bit more washed out. Also, the grass to me looks a bit more natural. There's a bit more detail in the grass here on that main lens, and the tree here on that main tree on the outline looks a bit more detailed too. So I think that larger sensor's coming through on the OPPO and it's pulling in more light, more detail, and that true color camera seems to be working quite well, in my opinion, on that wide angle shot. The Pixel shot above is very similar to the Samsung in a way, a little bit better maybe, or about the same as the Samsung, a little bit less washed out, but it is still a bit lifeless for me in color. It's not my favorite picture of the bunch. The OnePlus wide here looks quite I'd say it looks pretty good in terms of color accuracy, but you can tell here we've got a smaller sensor. To me, the image quality doesn't seem as good as the OPPO. So the OPPO and the OnePlus are my two favorite images of the bunch here, taken with these four phones. I think they've picked out the colors more accurately. If you look at the sky detail, they've not washed out the grays, and they've got the blue and the gray and the white contrast coming through nicely. It's just the OnePlus seems to be struggling a bit with that smaller sensor to give us that same detail as the OPPO. So you can see the smaller sensor here not providing as much detail, but the actual color accuracy of that Detail Max engine seems to be pulling through quite nicely on the OnePlus. So far so good for the OnePlus due to its downgraded hardware. But what do you think of these? And which one is your favorite then out of these four? And do you agree with me? Because I'm not posing to be an expert on camera hardware in any shape or form. I'm just very keen on smartphone photography, so I'm just giving my opinion here. I'm not going through detailed comparisons on these for from a professional photography point of view. It's completely for the average user who'll be picking up the smartphone. These are all taken on 12 megapixel point and shoot mode on all four phones, and that's exactly how I'm going to do it going through. So exactly the same mode all the way through, 12 megapixel and then portrait mode and macro as well. So this is the ultra wide example. So the ultra wide cameras tend to be the weakest cameras on all the phones, and I think we can see this here from these shots. So I've got here a shot of some tree lines, and the sky's grey and quite hard to focus on. It's going to give you an overexposed image on a lot of phones because it's going to struggle with that white sky contrast between the white and the colours in the foliage. So as you can see here, let's start off with the pixels. Well, the pixels actually probably my favourite picture of the bunch here. Because you've got the pixels handled it's not overexposed the image at all. It's got a nice detail in the foliage as well, and you can see everything quite clearly. And the sky, you can see all the detail in the sky still as well. So it's probably my favorite picture of the bunch. But if you look at the S25 here, that's overexposed the sky, and then that leads to overexposure in the rest of the image. Although it has picked out reasonably quite a good detail in the tree as well. So probably very similar to the pixel in terms of detail in the foliage. It's just actually the overexposure gives you that washed out effect to the image, and obviously that could be corrected in Photoshop, but I like to this is just a point and shoot comparison. So the OPPO ultra wide here is again, it's overexposed the image, very similar to S25 Ultra Wide. I think it's picked out a bit more detail in the foliage compared to the S25. So I think if it hadn't overexposed it, it would be quite a good shot here, but probably the weakest camera on the OPPO is the Ultra Wide in my opinion. OnePlus Ultra Wide here has done really well actually. So that is quite a weak camera on the OnePlus, but the processing engine's done really well. So you can see here, we've got software versus sensor sizes. So the software on the OnePlus and the Pixel has managed to process the image and stop it being overexposed and given us a good shot, but with less detail maybe in the foliage and on the general landscape of the image. But we've got an image we could actually use straight away, whereas the OPPO has given us probably a bit more detail in the image because it's bigger sensors and Hasselblad branding. We have got a slightly overexposed image because of that processing is not quite as good as the other two in this particular shot. So it's interesting to see how these phones process. Ultra wide cameras tend to be the weakest, and you can see here that they've all struggled a bit with this shot, but actually it's nice to see that the computational photography is actually managing to cope with it and bring us out a photo you could use in a point and shoot shot. So what do you think? Which one's your favorite then? Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments down below. Please get into a discussion. I'm really interested to know. So all taken on the default setting, no raw mode here or anything like that, or all default pictures. Just interested to know what you think, and get involved, get discussing down the comments down below. So thank you. Right, next one we're going to move on to then is the telephoto on the all four cameras. So this is a bit difficult because the Samsung S25 has a 10 times telephoto and a 5 times telephoto, or sorry, 3 times telephoto. So we're getting a broad range of optical shots, but that 10 times or the smaller telephoto sensor is quite small on the Samsung, so it tends to be quite grainy. So I'll do some comparisons with the main telephoto first on all four, then I'll show you the Samsung after. So let's get into the telephoto and see which one comes out best. So here we've got the telephoto cameras on all four phones. So we've got the S25 telephoto to start off with. So the telephoto on the S25, this zoom range, which is very similar to the zoom range, is about 67 millimeters on this one is the 10 times optical the 10 megapixel telephoto. So it's the weakest lens of all the Samsung lenses in my opinion, because it's the smallest sensor. So we've got the first S25 example here to me looks quite washed out. It's not very color life, and it looks a bit over processed. So to me, not the best picture here. If we look at the OnePlus telephoto lens here, which is at 80mm, which is a 50 megapixel sensor. The colours look really accurate here. It looks very good. The grass looks very good. The greens aren't oversaturated, and it's not overexposed the image, and there's still plenty of detail in the background on the shot as well. So a nice image, nice shot overall on the OnePlus for me. The pixel here looks a bit dark and a bit underexposed in some ways, and a little bit. It looks very a pixel image, so it's a bit flat to me. It doesn't look feel very lifelike or that. It looks quite natural in some ways, so maybe that's a more natural processed image, but I'm not sure it's my favourite picture of the lot, but even though technically it's the most natural. Then look at the OPPO. So the OPPO and the OnePlus look quite similar to me, so their processing engines seem to be doing something quite similar here. But if you look carefully at the OPPO, so if you look at where that orange bush is next to that bench in the background, the colour to me on the OPPO looks more accurate than it does on the OnePlus. So I think the colour processing camera here, that true colour 2 megapixel camera, is really helping to process the colours more accurately than on the other phones. So to me, it's actually working. The grass looks and the green looks really good. It's not overexposed. It's a really nice picture on that 200 megapixel telephoto, but this is a 12 megapixel crop. So it looks great on that OPPO telephoto. It's one of my favourite lenses to shoot with on any phone I've used so far, just as a heads up. It's a great lens, but I think the Samsung's the weakest here with that smaller megapixel telephoto, and for me the OnePlus and the OPPO look great, but the pixels technically look more natural, but it looks a bit dark for my liking and a bit I wouldn't necessarily enjoy looking at that photo as much as the other two. So which one's your favourite? Which one do you think's done well? And let me know in the comments down below which you think is the best telephoto. So let's have a look at the main S25 telephoto then now compared to the other shots taken on here. So here we have a high-res telephoto shot taken on max telephoto on all 4 phones. So start off with the pixel. So the pixel here is the full high-res picture, and it's taken on the telephoto 5 times. So this picture seems okay. It's very pixel photo. It's got muted colours and it looks almost quite natural. So it's quite a nice image. There's not that much detail on the rock necessarily, but the background is nicely blended with the rock, and it's got a bit of bokeh effect on it. So actually, I quite like it. Look at the OPPO high-res now. So the OPPO high-res to me looks a little bit struggled in that low light with that full telephoto shot on high res. It also seems to have lost a bit of the background detail, but it has got a nice bokeh effect and blurred it quite nicely. So, and there's plenty of detail on that rock as well. It's just the exposure is not quite right for me, but the colours look quite good. And then we look at the OnePlus. I think the OnePlus here has taken my favourite picture of the lot here. So the OnePlus picture looks great. It's got plenty of detail on the rock. Background's nicely blurred with the rock. Plenty of bokeh effects, but not too much. The colours look very good. The leaf colours look excellent. And it just is a very good photo compared to the other 4, I think. So and then we look at the Samsung. So the Samsung here is the worst one of the 3, I think, even though it's got the high resolution 50 megapixel telephoto. It just looks very washed out. The colours, it's over processed in my opinion, and overexposed, and also the detail on the rock is not as good as the other 3 phones. So it's beginning to see here that the Samsung S25 Ultra is a great phone, so I'm not knocking it at all. It's one of my favourite flagship phones of the year, but the cameras on it are starting to look a bit old, and it seems to need a bit of an upgrade. So I think we need to see some larger sensors here or something, or better processing power from Samsung on the S26 when it comes out. But what do you think here? What do you think of these high-res telephoto shots? Would you, which one do you think? Do you prefer the Pixel, the OPPO, or the OnePlus, or the Samsung? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if you think I'm wrong. So now let's look at some portrait mode on all 3 phones. So here is the portrait mode on all 3 phones at telephoto 3x portrait. So the first one we're looking at is the S25 Ultra, which is to me looks a bit washed out. The colours aren't very, colours look a bit muted to me and not quite as accurate. Some people may prefer this kind of look. To me, it's not my kind of look. Plenty of detail though, it's focused nicely. The portrait line is okay. Looks a little bit artificial maybe around the line. It's a little bit like the dog's been superimposed on the image to me, but that might just be the processing on this 25. So it's not my favourite of the bunch, but it's okay. Then we look at the OPPO. So the OPPO looks quite nice here. So we've got plenty of detail on the background because of that larger sensor. It's fine in the low light conditions because of that larger sensor. It's exposed it nicely. There's plenty of color accuracy here. Again, that true color camera playing into its own. If you look at the cycle helmets in the background, the colours look very good, very accurate, and lots of detail in that picture, and the dog looks quite natural how it is in the portrait mode, so it's a good picture. And we look at the pixels. So the pixels struggle in that low light with the smaller sensor. It's giving us a bit of a grainy image and a bit lifeless, but the actual colour processing is quite good. It looks quite natural. So our pixels are quite good for portraits in my opinion, because they give quite natural images. Just in low light they do struggle because they're smaller camera sensors. The OnePlus here, again, it's the background detail looks a bit artificial because of that smaller sensor, but the actual processing on the colours looks pretty good and pretty natural. So I quite like the OnePlus and the OPPO again, but what's your favourite here? I'd like to hear from you, so get involved in the comments down below. Let's move on now to macro mode and see which one gives you best macro performance. So this is macro mode on all 4 phones, and I actually think this is closer than ever. So the Pixel here is the worst one for me. It's really struggled. I struggled to take this shot on the Pixel completely, to be honest. It wouldn't focus on the ladybird and the plant. It just kept giving me a really bad photo, and this is the best one I could get out of about 10 photos. So this is the Pixel for me. It looks a bit lifeless, a bit washed out, and just hasn't given much detail. So macro, I've never been a fan of macro mode in the Pixel. It's not my favourite mode on the Pixel camera. And then the OnePlus macro here looks excellent. I think it's a very good shot here. We've got plenty of exposure's perfect, and the colour accuracy looks great. The background, again, on that smaller sensor looks a bit maybe not as good as the other phones, but it's okay. It looks quite a good macro shot to me. Then the S25 macro down here, I think that's done pretty well as well. It looks accurate and colour accurate, and the background looks quite detailed. So the S25 is a good macro mode too. The OPPO here has delivered an excellent macro shot in my opinion. It's got plenty of background blur, nice background blur, and loads of detail on the plant. So I think the OPPO and the OnePlus are my favourite ones, followed by the S25, and then the Pixel is the worst one of the lot. So I think if you're going for macro, that larger sensor on the OPPO does really help, especially in low light, and the OnePlus has done really well. The camera on the OnePlus is doing much better than I thought it would. I thought it'd be a terrible camera, but actually it's actually performing okay in most lighting conditions due to that Detail Max engine. So I'm quite enjoying the OnePlus camera in some ways. It's not as good as the OPPO, I don't think. I think the OPPO is better, as you can see, but it's not too bad, not too far behind. So let's move on to looking at the front camera on all 4 phones now. So here we have the front cameras on all 4 phones, all very different cameras, all different focal lengths, but I've tried to give you the closest I can to all 4 on the same focal length, but some of them have 3 times different focal lengths, like the OnePlus and the OPPO, which is really good for group shots, and some of them only have 1 or 2 times, which is on the Pixel and the S25. So if you're going to go for if you want the widest angle lens for selfie front shots, then the OPPO and the OnePlus are the one to go for. But let's look at the photos then here. So let's start off with the OnePlus. The OnePlus actually looks pretty good. So if you look at the background detail here, we've got plenty of detail with the ducks and the woods. It looks pretty nice in the background. But the most important here is the person in the selfie, so myself obviously. But yeah, I think you know, the skin tone looks pretty accurate. It's given quite a good result. It's maybe not quite exposed it as well as it's not overexposed it, but not quite. I don't know if it's my favourite shot here, but the detail looks quite good. It's quite a good shot. Quite happy with the OnePlus selfie camera. I think it looks pretty good. So the OPPO front camera here has not done well at all. It's overexposed and just looks a bit rubbish in the background, and the background looks a bit artificially processed. But the skin tone looks quite good, and my face it's overexposed, but the actual skin tone looks okay. So colour accuracy again on the OPPO is proving to be quite good. Then look at the Pixel. So the Pixel has overexposed it a bit and highly processed it. So we've got like skin tones look natural. It's a good looking natural image from how it actually looked on the day, but to me it's a bit artificially processed. S25 looks pretty good. We've got a good skin tone here and decent background detail, and it's not overexposed. So I think the S25 and the OnePlus here are my 2 favourites, but they're all handled it quite well actually, with accurate colour and accurate skin tones. If it just hadn't overexposed on the other ones, then it might have given good same results. So I think in terms of selfie cameras here, they all look pretty similar really. But I would recommend the OPPO and the OnePlus if you're using it into your selfies, because they have the wider angle shots. And obviously the OnePlus here is one of my favourite shots because it's given good detail and good colour accuracy. So interesting to see. Sorry, I mentioned about the OPPO having colour accuracy. It doesn't have the true colour accuracy on the front camera, obviously. So it's just obviously the processing engine that's given it a detailed colour. But I don't think it's my favourite camera out of all of them, but it's not too bad. So it's obviously the OnePlus, the S25, is all my 2 favourite ones here. So let me know in the comments what you think. Which one do you think is the best example down below. And now let's finally get into video performance at 4K video performance HDR, and then we'll wrap it up. So all 4 phones have decent video capabilities. So I think the Pixel's probably the weakest here. So the Pixel, as mentioned in my Pixel versus OPPO comparison, has a video boost feature which gives it up to 8K 30. But by default, if you're not using video boost, it will only do 4K 30 HDR or 4K 60 non-HDR. So it's a bit difficult to compare the Pixel. So I've never used the Pixel for video really because of the video boost feature, because you have to wait for it to upload. So as a creator, it's not the best phone for video, even though the boosted video does look quite good. So it's not like it's a bad camera for a bad phone for video. It just doesn't look, it's not as easy to use as the other phones because that's slower tensor chip. And then we've got the S25 Ultra here, which is a powerhouse for video. It's got all those 4 lenses, log capabilities, up to 4K 120, and I have to say here the video looks great. So this is the stabilized video. I was running around trying to get it to look rubbish, and it still looks great. I think colors are a bit muted, very Samsung colors, but quite accurate, and it's a good performer on video in my opinion. The OPPO here is has very similar capabilities to the Samsung. So it's got 4K 120, 4K 60 HDR, 4K 120 HDR, stabilization, log processing, and I think again the video performance looks quite good. It's maybe not handled the low light quite as well as the Samsung under the forest, but I think overall stabilization looks excellent, and the video quality looks fine in 4K. This film is actually filmed on the OPPO, so let me know what you think. I filmed it on the OPPO's main sensor. And then we look at the OnePlus, which again has impressed me. Same capabilities as the other 2 phones, so I won't go over it again to bore you, but I think it looks pretty good. I think it's probably the OPPO and the OnePlus probably are my favorites on here, followed by the Samsung, and then followed by the Pixel. But let me know what you think. I think all 4 phones have done fine on the video performance. I think video performance is okay on all 4 phones. I think they all get quite warm recording 4K 60, 4K 120 for long periods of time. So I've recorded this long video on the OPPO, and it's performed really well. It's not faulted on me, and it's recorded it perfectly. So and the Samsung is available in more storage options. In summary then, I think that the Samsung S25 Ultra is still a powerful phone, but it is lagging in its features and in its performance over the newer flagships that have come out. But then that is expected because we've got the S26 Ultra due out in January. So Samsung really needs to up its game. It needs bigger sensors, better processing, and just to generally look a bit more lifelike. And then we've got the Pixel. So the Pixel's really starting to lag behind now. The Tensor G5 just isn't up to scratch. It really slows down when processing your images. Video boost takes ages. It just needs a bit of a sort of a kick, the Pixel, to get back into the 21st century. I think it's lagging behind quite a lot. Having said that, the Pixel still gives us natural, lifelike images on a lot of the photos, as you will see. It doesn't overprocess colors, and it does look quite good for portraits. It's one of my favorite portrait phones, and it does do high-res 50 megapixel portraits. So it does have some benefits to it still, and is worth looking at if you want a portrait camera phone or a simple point and shoot camera phone and you're not too bothered about performance. Then we've got the OPPO X9 Pro with its fantastic MediaTek chipset and its powerhouse camera system with its big sensors, and I think it's the overall best camera here in terms of its performance and color accuracy with that 2 megapixel true to color life processing. I think it looks great. Also, it's got a huge battery, so it keeps you going all day with that 7,500 mAh battery. It's got fast charging and a fast chipset. So for me, the OPPO is the phone that will replace your compact camera or even a small DSLR essentially because of its performance. And then we've finally got the OnePlus. The OnePlus, everyone was very disappointed when the OnePlus was announced because it had that smaller sensors, downgraded lenses, but actually here, from my testing so far, the OnePlus seems to perform pretty well, and in some ways it's better than the OnePlus 13. It's got more color accuracy. The Detail Max engine makes the pictures look quite lifelike, and it does struggle under low light because of that smaller sensor. So if you're looking for something in low light, I would go for the OPPO with bigger sensors. If you're looking for an overall round package with a decent color accuracy at a good price with a fast processor, the OnePlus, you can't really beat it at the moment for its fast Snapdragon chipset. It's incredible amount of storage for the money, and it's lovely color finish and that sandstorm finish. So that's kind of my summary where we are. The OPPO is kind of the winner, but the OnePlus isn't far behind, and then the Pixel and the S25 are kind of lagging a bit. So let me know what you think. Get involved down in the comments down below. Am I wrong? Am I right? I want to know what you think. I might be completely wrong, and you might think I'm just talking complete rubbish, but I think that's what the 2 best phones are on the market at the moment in terms of out of these 4 phones I've compared here. So thanks for watching as always. Really appreciate it, guys. A thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe and comment would be great. So thanks very much, and I will speak to you next time.